The news from Guyana, the region and the world. Compiled in the News Talk Radio newsroom and powered by DemeraraWaves.com.
A very good morning to you. With the news at this time, I am Tiana Jordan. The news comes to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories. To begin the news, here's a look at the leads. Police early this morning cleared the bridge at Dartmouth, Essequibo Coast of protesters and debris. The Caribbean Court of Justice now has to say whether the Guyana Court of Appeal can hear an appeal of a High Court's decision to throw out an election petition on the grounds of a technicality. President Irfan Ali is set to meet with his Surinamese and Brazilian counterparts in Paramaribo for a working visit. And in regional news, in Barbados, the High Court has ruled that Barbados's general election will go ahead today without about 5,000 COVID-positive persons being allowed to vote. The cause of death of internationally acclaimed actor Sidney Poitier has been revealed. The details of these and other stories will be coming up right here in just a moment.
Don't let the fear of contracting the coronavirus disease deter you from seeking the medical care you need. At Eureka Labs, we ensure the safety of our clients and staff with our rigid sanitization routine. This involves the use of ultraviolet lights to effectively rid the air and all surfaces of viruses and bacteria that may be present throughout the lab daily. The light works to rapidly inactivate microorganisms through a physical process that is invisible to human eye. So the next time you need a checkup, don't hesitate to give us a call on 225-7574 to schedule your appointment.
And now the news in detail. The Guyana Court of Appeal on Tuesday granted leave to the government and the People's Progressive Party to appeal a decision to the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ. Chancellor of the Judiciary, Yonette Cummings, made her decision in keeping with the CCJ Act, and she also ordered that the applicants or intended appellants lodge $750,000 Guyana dollars with the Supreme Court as security for cost within 90 days from Tuesday. They also have to provide within 90 days a list of documents to be provided in the appeal. The Guyana Court of Appeal has ordered that its decision on December 21st be stayed until the CCJ hears and determines the matter. That decision had been that the Court of Appeal could hear an appeal on why the High Court dismissed an opposition APNU plus AFC election petition. The High Court has refused to hear it on a technicality because the representative of the list of candidates, David Granger, had not signed certain documents within the legally mandated period. Attorney at law Roy Steele Ford, before Tuesday's decision, failed to convince the court that the substantive appeal should have been first heard by the Guyana Court of Appeal before moving to the CCJ. Attorney at law Douglas Mendez, for the PPP's representative of the list of candidates, Bharat Jagdeo, told the Chancellor and other Justices of Appeal that his client has a right to a CCJ appeal because the matter touches on a constitutional matter and that the court ought to find that the matter is of great and general public importance. If the petition is ultimately heard, it could see a detailed examination of evidence related to allegations by both APNU plus AFC and the PPP of fraud that could have changed the outcome of the March 2nd, 2020 general and regional elections. Police early Wednesday morning cleared the bridge at Dartmouth Public Road, Essequibo Coast of debris. The pre-dawn operation was staged a day after protesters blocked the thoroughfare to protest the decision to charge a policeman with manslaughter of businessman Orrin Boston. The villagers are demanding that the policeman who shot Orrin Boston on September 15 in his bed be charged with murder instead of manslaughter. Constable Sherwin Peters was last week charged with manslaughter and was granted $1 million bail pending the hearing and determination of the case. School children from the Pomeroon and other areas west of the bridge were not able to travel to schools in Regina. Mr. Orrin Boston Sr. told News Talk Radio Guyana 103.1 FM that he and other family members, as well as other villagers of Dartmouth, will continue to press for the policeman to be charged with murder.
That's very bluntly unfair because you cannot go into a man's house, shoot a man in his bed, and then at the moment to call it a manslaughter. That's murder. So I'm not pleased with that. That's the reason why I'm out here today. We are here that charge wasn't the charge for that policeman who do that act. We're about getting the charge removed from there, and that man must get a murder charge.
Orrin Boston Sr., the father of Orrin Boston, the Essequibo Coast businessman who was shot dead by police last September at his home. President Irfan Ali is scheduled to make a working visit to Paramaribo on Thursday to meet with the President of the Republic of Suriname, Chandrika Prasad Santoki, and the President of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro. The Office of the President says the leaders are expected to discuss the formation of an energy corridor, oil and gas, and other natural resources opportunities, among areas of common interest. On Friday, President Bolsonaro and a team of officials are expected to travel to Georgetown for a one-day official visit with President Ali and his team of ministers. Discussions will center on improving economic relations, energy and food security, telecommunications, agriculture, infrastructure integration, and the development of a deep-water harbor in Guyana. Since Guyana offers the shortest and quickest access to the Atlantic for significant parts of northern Brazil, a road connection linked to the deep-water port could also serve the interests of both countries. When the two leaders spoke last Monday via teleconference, they discussed enhancing the partial scope agreement between their nations with the hope of bolstering trade. They also deliberated on topics for further engagements at the ministerial levels. Two teenagers who crashed into each other on the Caradaw-Nanawao Trail in Region 9 have died. They were riding two Brazilian registered motorcycles. Those who perished are 18-year-old Lennon Wilson of Katunarib Village, South Rupununi, and 19-year-old Job Edwards of Caradaw-Nanawao Village, South Rupununi. One of the motorcyclists was descending a hill at a fast rate of speed when he collided with the other one. They were both picked up in an unconscious state by public-spirited citizens and taken to the Ishalton Health Center. Wilson was pronounced dead on arrival. Edwards was treated for head injuries and lacerations about his body and later referred to the Latham Regional Hospital to seek further medical attention, where he succumbed to his injuries. Two women have been arrested in connection with the discovery of more than 400 grams of marijuana. The seizure was made at Samaru Dam, Podjoin, West Bank, Demerara, on Monday night. Investigators say that the two women, 18 years old and 34 years old, are the prime suspects. They are expected to be charged and placed before the court very shortly. And over now to regional news. The general election in Barbados is today. Barbados Today reports that High Court Judge Cicely Chase on Tuesday evening dismissed the application to call off the election. She ruled that the court had no jurisdiction to hear the matter. She said the action was incorrectly filed. Justice Chase said that the matter ought to have been brought before an election court. Philip Catlin of the Barbados Sovereignty Party had filed the application on the grounds that the exclusion of COVID-19 positive individuals from the election breaches the Representation of the People Act, which enshrines the right of eligible residents and citizens to vote. Veteran human rights attorney Lalu Hanuman represented Kathleen in the matter. Kathleen was seeking a restraining order against the holding of Wednesday's general elections until the disenfranchisement of thousands of electors who are in quarantine due to COVID is first resolved. Citing, among other things, a $66 million drop in revenue in the last fiscal year, the Telecommunications Services of Trinidad and Tobago, TSTT, has called in trade unions representing its workers for talks on restructuring. The company blamed its losses on the COVID-19 pandemic and competition from new technologies and suggested these negative impacts would persist into the future. TSTT said the increased use of digital apps such as WhatsApp and telecommunications platforms like Zoom has resulted in the steady erosion of traditional voice revenue. The company says revenue from fixed line calls has declined by 50% over the past 10 years, and mobile voice calling has declined by 20% in the same period, according to the annual Telecommunication Authority market reports. TSTT's revenue in the last fiscal year up to March 31st, 2021 fell by $66 million or 18% less than the prior year. It blamed the loss on the pandemic plus economic and technological factors unique to the Trinidad and Tobago market as a direct result of the global digital revolution in the telecommunications industry. Chief Executive Officer of TSTT, Lisa Agard, declined to say if the company's statement alluded to job losses and highlighted that it would not be prudent to comment on the outcome of the consultations until it has concluded. Finance experts in the British Virgin Islands are estimating that new revenue streams like gaming will help the government realize budgetary plans. During the Standing Finance Committee deliberations, policy analyst Dr. Don Alexander Joseph, Ministry of Finance, advised that approximately $5.7 million was estimated for gaming in 2022. Gaming and gambling were made legal in the territory under the Gaming and Betting Control Act 2020, which commenced on July 9, 2021, and was further amended in October 2021. Acting Financial Secretary Jeremiah Frett laid out the revenue projection process for the SFC. He noted that of the key areas of revenue in which they hope to collect in 2022, the majority will continue to come from the financial services industry, given that the industry continued to perform above the estimate provided. He stated that the ministry often took a conservative approach to determine the revenue projection figures. The acting FS advised that they also looked at existing and other revenue initiatives that would be taken into consideration and anticipate there would be progress and an increase in revenue in the cruise and yachting industries and tourism in general. He said they were optimistic that there would be some increases in revenue in certain categories. Sydney Poitier's cause of death has been released less than 2 weeks after the groundbreaking actor's death. The legendary entertainer, who was the first black man to win the Academy Award for Best Actor, died from a combination of heart failure, Alzheimer's dementia, and prostate cancer. This is according to a death certificate obtained by TMZ on Tuesday. He was 94 years old. The death was reported to the coroner's office, but a biopsy and autopsy were not performed, the record stated. He died at home in Beverly Hills on January 6th. The Bahamian-born icon's death was first announced by the Bahamas' Minister of Foreign Affairs, Fred Mitchell. Sydney was diagnosed with prostate cancer at the age of 66 in 1993, but was able to beat the disease after successfully undergoing surgery. His struggles with Alzheimer's dementia were not as publicly known. And now for the international news. We'll bring you the latest bulletin from the BBC World Service.
Hello, I'm Moira Alderson with the BBC News. The US Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has warned that Russia could send more troops to its border with Ukraine and launch an attack at very short notice. Russia denies that its estimated 100,000 troops on the Ukrainian border are there to invade. Speaking at the US Embassy in Kyiv, Mr. Blinken urged President Putin to choose a peaceful path.
The President asked me to come now to both reaffirm our own commitment to Ukraine, to consult closely with its leaders, as well tomorrow in Berlin to speak to many of our European colleagues, and then finally on Friday to see the Russian foreign minister, to take stock of where we are after a week of what's been very intense diplomacy between the United States and Russia. Again, I strongly hope that we can keep this on a diplomatic and peaceful path, but ultimately that's going to be President Putin's decision.
China says any athlete taking part in the Winter Olympics could be punished if they use the Games to stage a political protest. Michael Bristow reports.
A Chinese Olympic official has warned competitors against any behaviour or speech that contravenes the Olympic spirit or Chinese laws. He said athletes face losing their accreditation, but also hinted at other punishment. Some rights groups were already advising athletes to stay silent while in China because of the possible consequences in a country where there's no free speech. The International Olympic Committee already restricts participants from highlighting political issues at its events. There's a greater chance this could happen in China because of its alleged human rights abuses against Muslim Uyghurs in Xinjiang.
Britain's Prime Minister Boris Johnson is facing a perilous moment in his leadership as a plot by his own MPs to remove him gains momentum. He'll face more questions in Parliament today over allegations that parties at his residence broke COVID lockdown rules. Some MPs from his Conservative Party have already submitted letters of no confidence. Others say they may do so after he appears at Prime Minister's questions. Britain's rate of inflation has hit a 30-year high. Official figures show consumer prices rose by 5.4% in December compared with a year earlier. Andy Verity explains.
Inflation of 5.4% is a much faster rise in the cost of living than we've been used to in the past 3 decades. The last time it was higher was March 1992, another time when the world was emerging from a global economic shock when it was 7.1%. Driving it up in the year to December were not only higher petrol and diesel prices, but prices of food, drink, restaurants and hotels, furniture and homeware, and clothing and footwear. The Bank of England had already started raising interest rates last month, and they're likely to rise further this year as it seeks to prevent price rises getting out of control.
World News from the BBC. The Taliban in Afghanistan have appealed to Muslim nations to become the first to recognise their government. Since the militant group seized power in August, international aid, which funded most public services in Afghanistan, has dried up and foreign currency reserves have been frozen. That's left millions of people short of food. The Taliban Prime Minister Mohammed Hassan Akhund said diplomatic recognition would help the country develop quickly. Israeli police have demolished the home of a Palestinian family in a Flashpoint neighbourhood of occupied East Jerusalem. Here's Ilan Nell with the details.
In the cold and rain before dawn, Dozens of Israeli police officers raided the Salhia family home. Arrests were made and bulldozers moved in. This was the first eviction in Sheikh Jarrah since 2017. However, unlike in other local cases, it didn't involve a takeover by Jewish settler groups. Instead, the Jerusalem municipality said the building was illegal, something the family denied, and that the land was needed to set up a special needs school for Palestinians. Israeli activists point out that a nearby plot, which remains empty, was previously taken to build a school and then given to an ultra-Orthodox Jewish organisation for a seminary.
A high court in South Africa has overturned a lower court's decision to send a man accused of setting fire to Parliament for psychiatric evaluation. The judge said Sandile Mathe was admitted to Valkenburg Hospital for 30 days without proper cause, and any further detention there would be illegal. Cultural institutions in the Netherlands are conducting a unique protest against the government's COVID-related lockdown measures. More than 100 theatres, museums and galleries, which had been told to stay shut, are reopening as temporary gyms, beauticians and hairdressers. They include the prestigious Concertgebouw and the Van Gogh Museum, which is offering beard or haircuts and art-inspired nail manicures. BBC News.
The news came to you with the compliments of Eureka Medical Laboratories.
A COVID-19 PCR test is now mandatory for many routine activities, including travel and return to work purposes. At Eureka, our trained and experienced staff will ensure confidentiality while your test is conducted in a professional and timely manner, with results in just 48 hours. So the next time you require an efficient and hassle-free PCR COVID-19 test, call 624-8378, 608-8378, or 623-7233 to schedule your appointment. You can also ask about our house call testing service.
And now to end the news, here's a recap of the leads. Police early this morning cleared the bridge at Dartmouth Essequibo Coast of protesters and debris. The Caribbean Court of Justice now has to say whether the Guyana Court of Appeal can hear an appeal of a High Court's decision to throw out an election petition on the grounds of a technicality. President Irfan Ali is set to meet with his Surinamese and Brazilian counterparts in Paramaribo for a working visit. In regional news, in Barbados, the High Court has ruled that Barbados's general election will go ahead today without about 5,000 COVID-positive persons being allowed to vote. The cause of death of internationally acclaimed actor Sidney Poitier has been revealed. And that's the end of the news.
This has been the news, compiled in the News Talk Radio Newsroom. For ongoing updates, visit demerarawaves.com, and you can check facebook.com/demwaves and twitter.com/demwaves.